Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Deep Dive with the Housewives, where we take a deep dive look at everything that's going on with our favorite housewives so we can learn more about ourselves and about each other. I'm Jamie Stein, and I'm excited to dive in today because we are going to finally tackle the madness, the cabaret madness of the Real Housewives of New York City. This is a long time coming. The season has built up to quite a climax. There's a lot going on. I've actually been getting honest to God intuitive hits while I've been watching it, and it's all been incubating in my system. So I'm ready to go there with you guys, peel back the layers of some of these housewives on New York and kind of see where it takes us. I think there's a huge theme here around powerlessness. I think all the different housewives are experiencing different degrees and experiences of powerlessness in relationship to LuAnn, including LuAnn. And I think we're seeing the deep place where this sense of powerlessness is taking them. So we're going to tackle that today. We're going to tackle what it means to be powerless, what it can bring up in you, and perhaps how to navigate that a little bit more effectively than the women on our TV screen currently are. So first and foremost, I want to talk about the star of the show herself, Countess LuAnn DeLesseps. So I actually got a very strong intuitive hit on LuAnn when she was gazing upon her poster in Miami. And if you recall, she ditched the group to go look at her poster for her cabaret show. She gazed upon it lovingly. You could just see the joy and the self-satisfaction in her face and in her eyes and in her heart. She literally muttered under her breath, "Amazing." She was so smitten and enchanted by the sight of her own poster. And as I watched LuAnn have this very sort of unguarded, raw and real moment that, quite honestly, most people would probably try to hide from others, but LuAnn, in her total lack of self-awareness, just sort of let it all hang out in front of the cameras. God bless her. This is why we're watching her. This is why we're watching these shows. But as I watched her gaze upon her own poster with such a sense of wonder and awe, I got such a strong hit that this is truly a woman. And this is going to sound perhaps obvious, but bear with me because I'm going to take it to a deeper level. This is truly a woman who did not get enough attention as a child. Like, I could feel that in my body, that this was a woman who not only did not get attention as a child, but my sense is that she truly was not seen. She truly was not heard. That there is a way that as a child or as a young woman, she felt completely missed by the people around her. And that's why we're seeing her lap up attention. Gimme, 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 gimme. Because I think from a very early age, this was someone who had an experience of almost, I want to say, like not even feeling like she's fully existing. And, it's funny because we hear that expression all the time, like, oh, they didn't get enough attention as a child. It almost becomes like a really easy, glib pop psychology armchair analysis of someone. But in the case of LuAnn, I want to say it feels really deep to me, and I would actually say it feels traumatic to me. And I'm going to explain why. There's a very specific thread or flavor of terror that I feel associated with this place where LuAnn wasn't really seen or heard as a kid. Because here's the thing. If you're not seen or heard as a kid, if you don't trust that the adults in the world around you can see you and hear you, what happens if and when you're in trouble? If you have an experience of, oh shit, I'm in trouble here, I'm suffering here, and no one's seeing and hearing me, what's going to happen to me? It reminds me a little bit of like that amazing moment on Vanderpump Rules, if you recall, a few seasons ago when Jax went for a swim. And I forget exactly what happened, but I think he got tired out in the middle of the swim, and he suddenly felt like he was drowning. And if you recall, he kind of couldn't find it in him to like really scream or to yell out for help in a strong way. And so he was kind of like thrashing around a little bit out there and kind of meekly saying, hey, I could use some help if you could come out here, if you could help me. And you could kind of feel that there was this panic in him because there was something in him that couldn't quite let out the cry for help. But he knew he needed help, and he knew if he didn't get help, he was going to drown. And there was an interesting bind he was in there. And he said that his life literally flashed before his eyes. And I bring that up because that's kind of the intuitive sense I get around LuAnn's early terror. It's this feeling of like, oh my God, if something's wrong with me here, and if no one's seeing me or hearing me, who's going to help me when I need help? And I actually get the feeling like she did need help. Like that there were things going on for LuAnn emotionally, things that she was feeling and seeing and hearing that she needed help with. And because she was in an environment where she was not being seen, where she was not being heard, she wasn't going to get any help. And she didn't even have the experience that she could ask for help. And so I feel like it left her sort of in this place of low-grade terror where she's kind of looking around saying, guys, I need some help here, and yet no one's seeing me, no one's hearing me. What's going to happen? Oh shit, I'm going to drown. And I think for LuAnn, there's kind of a double message there. One is just this message of like, no one's going to see me or hear me, so I might as well not even try. Or if I do try to be seen or heard, I get a message that I'm not, to speak. I'm not to be seen. I'm not to be heard. So there's just that fundamental message of I will not be seen, I will not be heard. And then I think what happens is overlaid on top of that is this real sort of terror and fear of like, oh shit, if I'm not going to be seen or heard, I'm going to drown out here. And that's freaking terrifying. And then I think what gets overlaid on top of that is the grief and the sadness of, oh shit, I'm not worth being seen or heard. Oh shit, I'm not worth being rescued. And then I think overlaid on top of that grief is the rage of why isn't anyone hearing or seeing me? Why don't I have the right to be seen or heard? I need help here. So you can see it's like if we follow this thread, there's this core experience of LuAnn feeling like she's not going to be seen or heard. And there are all these emotions that get clustered around that. And the bind here is because there's no space for her to be seen or heard, there's nowhere for her to go with all these emotions. So what happens? LuAnn just feels like she's got to kind of cut them off. It doesn't feel safe for LuAnn to feel all these feelings because for LuAnn, on a certain level for LuAnn, in the place where she feels like she is not going to get help, in the place where she feels like no one is going to be there for her, it almost feels like a life-threatening thing to acknowledge, hey, I'm scared and I need help here. Because if you don't believe you're actually going to get help, it's almost like by acknowledging that you need help, by acknowledging you're in that situation where you're sort of fighting against water and the water might be taking you under, on some level you believe once you acknowledge you might be drowning, you're going to drown. Does that make sense? Because if there's no one there to throw you the life raft, if there's no one there to drag you out of the water, even acknowledging that you're fighting against the water means you are inevitably going to drown because there is no one there to help you. So your best bet is just to ignore the fact that you even need help. Ignore the fact that you're suffering. Ignore the fact that there are problems. Ignore the fact that you've got these strong feelings of grief and rage inside you. Ignore the fact that there's something you need that you're not getting. Just put it away. Because I, as LuAnn, don't trust anyone's going to see or hear me. So if I acknowledge there's a problem here, there is going to be no help for my problem, and I am going to drown. And that's why I think we see LuAnn so cut off from the truth of her feelings. I think this is a woman who does not feel the least bit safe to be connected with her deeper feelings and with their deeper truth, because there was never any space for her to be seen or heard as a young girl, as a young woman. So I think what we see now is LuAnn kind of running around like a chicken with their head cut off, where it's just like, it's all about Tom. It's all about Tom. It's all about the cabaret. It's all about the cabaret. Let me go. Let me drink. Let me do anything I can to not go inside and deal with what's really here, because I don't believe there's actual help for me. And I feel if I actually acknowledge the reality of what's going on in here, I am going to fucking die without help. And I think because LuAnn refuses to connect with herself, refuses to let any of her true deeper feelings in, she also refuses to truly connect with others. She cannot hear what other people are saying. She cannot risk taking in what other people are saying, because if she takes in what Bethenny is saying to her, if she takes in what Barbara is saying to her, she might have to start feeling her feelings, and LuAnn doesn't want to do that. She is terrified of doing that. She wants to stay out of the feelings. So again, it's like, let me just block out what other people are saying. Let me block out what's going on inside me in a deeper level, and let me just keep going. I'm drinking. I'm sober. I'm Tom. I'm cabaret. She's just keeping her eyes on the prize and going. And so what you have here with LuAnn is basically this little girl who's starved for attention, who's just basically saying, give me more, fill me up, give me all the attention I didn't get as a kid. And by the way, don't you dare make me feel any of these feelings on the inside, because I don't trust I'm gonna survive it. I just want the attention. I think that LuAnn is someone who's very emotionally cut off from herself. I think she's very emotionally stunted. I think Bethenny said it best at one of the last reunions, where she just said she's like a big child. I think something got so stunted in the place where she made a decision that it is not safe for me to feel any of my feelings. And I think that's what we're watching play out on the show now. So that brings us to the other women, right? And how the other women are navigating and orienting around LuAnn, and what it's bringing up in the other women to be dealing with someone like LuAnn. So before we get into the Bethenny of it all, I want to take a moment to talk about Sonja. So this is what I see going on with Sonja. As you saw, she went to the AA meeting. She had a huge breakdown afterward. According to Sonja, her breakdown was simply because she's so empathic and so empathetic that it's hard for her to absorb the other people's pain. You know, she mentioned, the guy who was sort of very close to being homeless. She mentioned the guy who, was compulsively roaming from city to city looking for a fresh start. And according to Sonja, it was just too much for her to take in. She feels too deeply for them. She wants to help them, and it's too much. I have a different take on what's going on with Sonja. I think very similar to LuAnn, Sonja is uncomfortable with what's actually going on inside of herself. And I think when she goes to an AA meeting like this, and she's confronted with people who are hitting these rock bottoms, these people who are this close to being homeless, I think what happens is she's essentially seeing an external reflection of what's going on inside her internally that she tends to want to avoid. I think that Sonja, to be quite honest, is someone who, on an unconscious or semi-conscious level, herself feels like she could be homeless at any moment. I feel like Sonja feels like someone who's hanging on by a thread. I mean, we see this, right? We saw how desperately she clung to the townhouse as it fell apart beneath her very feet. We have seen how Sonja keeps the tags on her new clothes. She hangs on to her new clothes in case she wants to return them, right? We've seen how Sonja hangs on to the Morgan name in the Morgan prestige. This is a woman who's very uncomfortable letting go, surrendering control, and surrendering to the flow of life and letting life take her somewhere. She's always sort of hanging on by a thread. Someone who keeps the tags on the clothes in order to be able to return them or resell them, that says a lot about their mind state. Or rather, their state of mind, their mindset. It says a lot about their mindset. It's a mindset that says, I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford this. I don't know where my next dollar is coming from. I'm not safe enough to even take the tag off my clothes. I mean, it's an interesting connection with LuAnn. I'm not safe enough to feel my feelings. I'm not safe enough to let go of this townhouse. This is all I've got. I've got to hang on to every last bit of the Morgan wealth and the Morgan name I have because I don't know what I have without this. Without this, I might be nothing. Without this, I might be destitute. You know, Sonja has a bit of that kind of, she's a bit of a hustler. You know, she's always presenting her life as this glamorous thing. She's so attached to the illusion of prestige and wealth, and it's become a bit of a joke on the show that she's talking about John, and she's talking about hanging out with Madonna, and people sort of like to laugh about it. But the reality of the situation is, I mean, it's really quite sad. This is someone who is desperate to believe in the illusion of her wealth and her prestige, even though it doesn't really match current day reality. Why is she doing that? Because on some level she feels like if she doesn't have it, she's going to be the one who's homeless. She's going to be the one who has to go from city to city looking for a fresh start. She's the one with a problem, a substance abuse problem. And I think that Sonja is just so intent on not experiencing that emotional reality inside of herself, that place where she is so scared she's going to end up on the street, the place where she is so scared she's going to lose everything she has, the place where she is so scared that she cannot surrender to life, that she just sort of keeps herself lost in her own cabaret. Her cabaret is not on the stage. Her cabaret is living performance art. You know, it's the illusion of her wealth. It's the illusion of her prestige. It's the illusion of her devil-may-care, happy-go-lucky facade. And I think when she goes to a meeting, it just brings her right back down into reality, a reality she does not want to be in. And when she sees those people up there speaking about their rock bottoms, it makes her have to deal with her own rock bottom, and Sonja will not do that, much like LuAnn will not feel her own feelings. So you can already see there's themes, there's common themes snaking its way through the constellation of the New York housewives, right? And so that kind of brings me to my final point and brings me to the Bethenny of it all. What I find so interesting about what's going on in New York is that, you essentially have a bunch of women who want and expect LuAnn to be someone different than she actually is. If I were talking directly to Bethenny or to Tinsley or to Ramona or to Barbara or whomever, one of the things I would say to them is look, LuAnn is who she is. She has revealed herself to you. She's never going to change. So what you have to do at this point is, if you're going to give to her, you have to give to her from a place of understanding she's never going to fully take it in. She's never going to fully take it in because she can't take herself in, so she can't take you in. So if you're going to give to her, just get that you know the deal at this point. She's going to revert back to being selfish. She's going to revert back to being self-absorbed. She's going to revert back to being narcissistic. Anything you give to her has to just come completely without any conditions, in understanding LuAnn is going to be who LuAnn's going to be. And if you can't handle that, great. Don't give to her as much. Don't expect her to change, because she's not. And I feel like what we're seeing now are the women coming up against the frustration and anger and, yes, powerlessness that comes up when they want, need, and expect LuAnn to change, to hear them, to take them in, and she's not doing it. Which brings us to Bethenny and Bethenny's breakdown. So there are two things that I got off Bethenny's breakdown. Yes, for sure. Let me just say before I go into my two items, definitely Bethenny's dealing with a lot this season, and I definitely think it's true. Yes, she was dealing with Dennis's death. Dennis had his own substance abuse problem. I'm sure there was a lot of that in there, and a lot of people have spoken to that. But I actually have two other things that I haven't really heard anyone else speak to that really kind of came up for me on an intuitive level when I was watching sort of Bethenny's climactic takedown of LuAnn and her breakdown in Miami. So this is the first thing. I really had this feeling like Bethenny was coming up against some of her mother stuff. Because I think, with LuAnn, here's a woman that Bethenny loves and cares about to some degree. I mean, I think she loves and cares about her, or else I don't think she would have gone so far out of her way to help LuAnn in the way that she did. So LuAnn is a woman that Bethenny loves and cares for. She's a woman that Bethenny has tried to help. And yet LuAnn isn't hearing her. She's not seeing her. She's not taking her in. And like I said, for Bethenny, I have to imagine this creates a sense of powerlessness of trying to help someone she cares about, and watching someone she cares about continue to make bad decisions and destructive decisions, and experiencing someone she cares about not seeing her, hearing her, or taking her in. Now, I don't know a ton about Bethenny's background, but I know, she shared enough to let us know that she had a very difficult relationship with her mother, that her mother had eating issues and addiction issues, and it sounds like was quite emotionally abusive. And so I have to imagine for young Bethenny as a child, there was probably a lot of caretaking of her mother, probably a lot of trying to manage her mother, probably a lot of trying to help her mother, again, a woman that she loved, and probably a lot of watching her mother unable to, one, take in what Bethenny was trying to do, see and say to help her, and two, also unable to really help herself. And I have to imagine when you're a daughter, again, to connect this back to LuAnn, when you are a daughter trying to help your mother, yes, it's about the love that you have for your mother, but it's also about something else too. Your mother is the one who you need to survive, because you're the child in the relationship, right? This is your parent. You're counting on your parent to give you a life that is stable and will propel you forward. So I have to imagine on a conscious or a semi-conscious level, when you are a child trying to help a parent in need, it's not just about helping the parent. It's also about this is the adult in the relationship. They're the ones who are in charge. I need to help them get it together because I need to have them get it together so that they can take care of me. Because if they don't have it together to take care of me, where am I in this situation? So I wouldn't be surprised if on some level for Bethenny, there's a similar sense of survival fear that LuAnn most likely felt in not being seen or heard. But again, there's certainly an experience of powerlessness, of oh my God, I'm trying to help you, and my heart's invested in this, and you're not seeing or hearing me. And the panic that can bring up, the rage, the grief. And I just have to wonder if this experience with LuAnn triggered some sort of old energy pattern or dynamic with Bethenny's mother. Now, the second thing that I think very likely is coming up for Bethenny, and I have to imagine it's coming up for all the other women, Ramona, Dorinda, Tinsley, Sonja, is that LuAnn right now is presenting such a larger than life, dramatic and distorted version of the person who just will not look at the deeper problems or what's really going on in their lives. The person who is clinging to something, in this case the cabaret, LuAnn is clinging to the cabaret show for all her validation, for all her meaning. She's putting all of her energy into this cabaret show, and it's all smoke and mirrors to not be dealing with what's really going on inside of her. She's sort of like she's like a black hole, if you will, or a shiny object that just reflects back the flashbulb lights without letting anything in, without taking anything in on a deeper level. And I have to imagine on some level, this reminds all the women of their own relationship to the television show, The Real Housewives of New York City. So with LuAnn, she's clinging to the cabaret, right? And she's doing it in this very big, visible way that looks very kind of unflattering and destructive. And yet, to some degree, isn't this what all the other women are doing? Except instead of the cabaret, the show here in this case is the show we're watching. Dorinda clinging to the Real Housewives of New York City and avoiding everything that's really going on with her on a deeper level. Tinsley clinging to the Real Housewives of New York City and to avoid everything that's going on with her at a deeper level. Ramona, she's gotten divorced from Mario. You know, she's in her 60s now. She's single. This is not the life she imagined for herself. She doesn't even have her business anymore. This show has changed her. Is there not a sense that her life has become about this show and that there's so much she's avoiding inside of herself by clinging to the Real Housewives of New York City in the same way that LuAnn is clinging to the cabaret? And I just have to wonder if part of the frustration these women are feeling in seeing LuAnn act out in this way is, much like Sonja at the AA meeting, they are looking at a mirror reflection of themselves. They are looking at an exaggerated, distorted version of themselves that makes them very uncomfortable, and as a result, it is spinning them out. God, you guys, so it's a lot. This is a lot. You know, we have themes here of powerlessness. We have themes here of deep disconnection from your feelings. We have themes here of what it means to be in relationship with someone that you care about who will not, cannot see you or take you in. And it's all coming to a head. And I think that's why these episodes are coming so alive, because there's such a thematic unity of what's going on with all these women. So as we reach the end of this video, guys, I just want to sort of ask you to maybe take a moment and just reflect in your own life. You know, what are the things that you cling to give you that sense of validation, to give you that sense of meaning? What are the things inside yourself that you so do not want to feel or see? How do you deflect other people so that you don't have to feel yourself on a deeper level? Where does all this take you? And again, you guys, if you're watching this video and if it is sparking something inside you, if there is someone in your life who takes you to a place of powerlessness and rage and grief, or if you are someone who has felt like you've never been seen or heard and you suspect there are feelings there that you're cutting yourself off from, and you want help connecting to those feelings, identifying those feelings, head over to my website, send me an email. This is what I do in sessions with people. I drop in and I'm able to channel whatever unconscious feelings, emotions, and energy you might be ignoring or overlooking so that you can get into greater wholeness. As always, if you like this video, if you got something out of it, please hit like, hit subscribe. It helps me so much. The more people who subscribe, the more I can make these videos. And as always, head over to my Instagram, Jamie Stein. I've got content there that I don't put on YouTube. And there's also my Twitter, Jamie_Stein_. And leave me comments. I love hearing from you guys. And if you have questions about anything I've said, let me know. It might end up being the fodder for another video, but I love to hear from you. Okay, guys, we'll see how this plays out, and I'll be back soon with more.